Coach, we talked to the players, and we thought there might be a big message at halftime, and they just said, well, you guys got back to Panther basketball, the defensive end.
Coach made a bad decision in the scout, the prep, getting ready. Belmont had success going under with a lot of their actions. And Indiana State does a terrific job. As good as anybody we've played to this point in terms of their ball movement, their passing and ball movement, the skill level up front with 23 and 35. And then they run really good stuff. So once they figure out where you're at, some of those layups that they got in the first half in particular, right? So between the skill level of their bigs, the actions they're running, but back to where you started, Nelly, decide to be aggressive on the outside, which is the way we have played, or go underneath it and take away something that Indiana State does really well in terms of hitting the pocket, hitting guys on the roll. And I made the wrong decision, and that took away our aggressiveness in the first half defensively. And that's, as we've talked about a lot, this team has been terrific in the half court defensively. And I took that aggressiveness away with the decision to play it a little bit different. At halftime, we said, hey, we're going to go just back to on the sides. We're going to go get them, right? and play the way we've played, and that helped us.
And the other thing, too, is Ben had a huge second half, and it seemed like it was kind of, did you give him a pride that you can take this guy to the basket?
It was more, Indiana State invites you into that 12 to 16-foot pull-up. And we took 4 or 5 of them in the first half, and Benny took one on the outside right in front of their bench. He took another one in the lane. He took a 3 where he had his feet set. So we were shooting a lot of jump shots. It's those, and those are the ones they want you to take. They're in drop coverage. Right? So what we talked about, and it was later in the first half, we just said, hey, Benny, Leon, Tristan, Trey, guys that are in that spot the most for us, you've got to stay on the dribble. And you have got to engage the 5, their center, and you've got to get the basketball to the backboard. We cannot be picking the ball up and taking jump shots at 12 feet. You've got to get all the way to the rim, and you got to get the ball on the backboard. And Benny was involved with more of those than the other guys in the second half, and his strength and determination to get that ball to the backboard and get it in the basket was a real key for us.
And we've talked about this all year, but you did a great job of not giving them second chances. They only had 2 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, and that it came at a good time, right? Because that covered up the what we talked about first. The decision to play defensively in the first half. They scored 38 points, and because I took some of the aggressiveness away, we were able to get. I think they had 2 offensive rebounds. Right? So it came at a really good time. Right? And we need to keep. Yeah, we got to keep building on that. We got to be better there.
Indiana State had the 12-0 run in the first half, Jake, to take a 28-20 lead. You had a 5-minute, 47-second scoring drought in the midst of that Indiana State run. When you have an opponent that's on a run like Indiana State had there in the first half, you opted not to call a timeout when Indiana State was in the midst of that run. When you have an opponent that's on a run like Indiana State had, at any point in a game, how do you evaluate whether or not to call a timeout in a run like that?
Yeah, a lot of times in the first half, I would say, Josh, that is, I don't go to a timeout. And then the other, part 2 would be how is it happening? Right? I think we may have had 1 or 2 turnovers in that stretch on plays that were not a little bit out of character for us, right? And ones that our guys don't make very often, so you don't anticipate maybe that happening again. So you feel like, hey, a little execution, we're going to get a basket. That'd be part 2 is like what's happening in the run, and then C, I would say it's I like moments in games where the players have to figure it out, because that's an area for them to grow, an area for them to continue to take on more and more responsibility, is to understand that every time something happens in a game, or a 6-0 run or an 8-2 run, that there isn't going to be a timeout to be able to come over and sit down. Like, we're going to have to learn to take care of this on our own. And this team has done a very good job, right? Did a really good job of Valpo down the stretch. Did a good job tonight down the stretch. Indiana State made a couple shots and kept it within one possession. This team has done a terrific job in terms of the responsibility they've taken and their willingness to fight through a run like that in the first half and do that as players.
And then we saw Will, looked like maybe Will came out of the game holding his hand. We didn't see him then the rest of the game. What can you tell us, if anything, on that?
Yeah, I think he's okay. Yep, is what I would tell you. We'll know more tomorrow, but I think he's okay.
Max got his first minutes back after missing 4 games. What was it like to see him back out there?
Yeah, it's he was able to practice yesterday for the first time, and it was great to have him in practice. And the game, when you miss a month and you miss 4 games, like, it isn't just Max getting back up to speed. It's the teams you're playing against. Indiana State's played 4 or 5 games in that time that Max has been out, right? So those guys are a little sharper than they were a month ago, right? Because they've been able to be in every practice. They've been able to be in every game. Well, Max has missed all of our practices, and he's missed 4 games, and so it takes just a little bit. And so his conditioning, and then I'm not worried at all about his timing and execution, and we need his personality out there. We need his shot making. We need his ball handling. So, yeah, my hope is that he can be more, anywhere 12 to 20 minutes on Sunday, and I think he'll be able to. But we got to get his minutes built back up. We need him out there for 15 to 25 minutes a night.
And it seemed that Ismail had maybe his best 27 minutes for you guys.
Yeah, his confidence has come a long ways. He puts in a lot of time. He's in getting shots every day. He's in the office watching film every day. He really wants to know, okay, what can I do? What happened here, and how can I get better? How can I do more in the way of helping our team? So he's been great about that, and it paid off tonight, because it's one of those things you don't know before the game starts that one of your main guys, Will in this case, is going to get banged up a little bit, and then ends up where that group's playing well enough, so I leave him in there for 16, 17 minutes straight, right? You don't know that before the game starts. So when it's all said and done, you look back and say, okay, well, how prepared was I? And that's where I give Izzy a ton of credit. He's worked really hard to, whether he's playing 6 minutes or 10 minutes or 12 minutes, and tonight, what we found out is he's very prepared, right? And then maybe I mentioned it, but his confidence has come a long ways. His belief in himself is really changing, and that's great to see. I'm really, really happy for him on that front.